Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitsuTimes podcast. Today, my guest is Mr. Ronnie Grant, owner and driver of a very sick 9-second 1G. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. So, your car's obviously been on the Hoonigan channel and been seen on the, Facebook and at the shootout many times. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your very special 1G?
I'm Ronnie Grant. Got a 1990 Eagle Talon.
Very cool black 1G. What was the episode on the Hoonigan channel that people can go and check out that you raced?
The Hoonigan was this versus that, and I think it's titled Eagle Talon versus a McLaren.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yep. It's kind of a funny story with that. I actually went there twice. So I went once, and I was supposed to race a twin-turbo Lamborghini Huracan that made like 1,200 horsepower on the lowest setting.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I went there the first time, and we filmed, the full intro and the B-roll shots and basically everything but the racing. And they were saving our race for the last race. And it kind of started raining, sprinkling throughout the day. And we like I said, we were the last ones, and basically the driver of the Lamborghini kind of got spooked and just ended up leaving. So I didn't get to race. Yeah, so I basically just packed up. I didn't even get to make a test hit or anything, and just packed up, and then they called me back. It was like 3 months later. And then went back again, and that's when I raced the McLaren.
Wow.
Yeah. The guy with the McLaren is actually, he was an old school DSM guy. He had a 1G back in the day.
No kid.
Yeah, he was actually a really cool guy. He just kind of the natural evolution and just started getting into more expensive, nicer, faster cars. Yeah. It was a really cool experience.
It's awesome. I loved the episode. It was definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because they were trying new things with the filming and like how they did their questions and all that.
Yeah.
So it kind of had a different vibe than the older This versus That videos, but I still think it came out good.
Yeah.
It was short and sweet and straight to the point.
For sure.
Yeah.
Ronnie, what originally got you into DSMs and, eventually into drag racing?
The DSM thing was really kind of random. So I rode in one back in high school. A buddy of mine had one, and I rode in it once, and that was really it. And then once I got into my 20s, it's kind of a funny story. I had a Chevy Cavalier was my daily driver, and this is when Craigslist was still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got onto Craigslist, and I just typed in turbo car. And I don't know if you remember it, but I used to have a red 1G, and it was front-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
Turbo, front-wheel drive. And that popped up. The guy was asking like $3,000 or something for it. And I asked if he wanted to trade. And the guy was like, yeah, I'm about to have a baby, so I need a more family-friendly car. So I went and met up with the guy, and we traded straight across. And I started building that car. It probably made 350, 400 horsepower. And it was just more of a weekend cruiser car.
Right.
And I started going to, there's this local, they called it Race Legal. It was literally in a parking lot. And it was an eighth mile track. and I started going to that, and the front wheel drive stuff just wasn't cutting it for me, so I went back to Craigslist and I found my current car, and it's all wheel drive, and I went and bought that one. Bought it in Vegas.
So the one you have now, you bought in Vegas?
Yeah, so I I did the same thing. I went on Craigslist and I typed in Eagle Talon,
Yeah.
Mitsubishi Eclipse, DSM until I found that one, and it was in Vegas. The guy was asking $2,500 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was completely bone stock. When I went up there, I got a U-Haul trailer, drove out there. It was like 5 or 6 hours from me, and drove out there. I didn't even test drive the car. I just put it straight on the trailer and drove it right back home.
Said, I'll take it.
Yep. And I literally the next day, I pulled the motor out and started the swap, basically swapping everything from my original red front wheel drive car into this one.
Okay. So I guess what drew you to the 1G was just kind of blind luck then.
Yeah, kind of. I've always liked the more, what's the right word? I guess kind of like boxy look of a 1G.
Yeah, for sure.
Versus like the 2G bubble look.
Right.
Well, a 2G 2GB Talon is probably one of my favorite cars, but I like the 1G, the squared boxy look.
Yeah, understandable.
And I'm the pop-up headlights.
Can't go wrong with those.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie, let's talk about the setup. What's going on under the hood of your 9-second 1G?
A lot. It's my car wasn't like a buy it and just build it all at once type of build. It was
Right.
It had an evolution. It started out as, like I said, I swapped from the red car to that one. So it probably made, 350, 400 horsepower on a 20G. And then it just kind of evolved from there. I had HX40 and just kept going. And now it's Darren Thomas Racing did basically the motor.
Okay.
R&R aluminum rods. It's a half-filled block. So I still run the stock water pump. Still run coolant through the top part of the block, but the bottom portion is filled. What else? All Kigley stuff in the head. I think GSC S2 cams.
Okay.
That's basically the motor. It's on a Zona 6868 with a full Morrison hot parts kit. And a whole bunch of JMF stuff. JMF, it's actually just a race intake manifold. I don't even have a drag intake manifold. It's auto. I swapped to an auto. I think it was like 2017 I did the auto swap.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's originally a manual car. It's funny because when I did the auto swap, there was no information about doing an auto swap. You couldn't just go online and how we have the W4A 33 page now, and
right.
There's a whole list of all the parts and everything you need. There wasn't any of that when I did it, so it was kind of trial and error. But it's working for me now. I do all my own transmission stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of guys that I still go to and ask questions about stuff. But yeah.
Well, what all's done to the auto trans to hold up all that power?
Straight cut gears, It just has just a regular translab valve body. I have the pressures cranked up a little bit. The Kigley 5-pack of clutches, the red ones, when you could still actually get them. I'm trying to ride those out as long as I can because I know we can't get them anymore.
Need them to survive a little longer.
Yeah. What else I got? That's really I think the basics. I don't have billet drums or any of that stuff. They're all the stock drums.
What are you doing for axles and rear diff?
So I actually had just been fighting the rear end. I couldn't keep the stock axles in it. So I just recently went to the DSS level 5 axles, and then it's just a stock rear diff with a frontline fab cover brace.
Okay.
And then I have all the Volk arms back there and some BF fab mustache bar. I think that's about it for the rear end. I got a DSS, the 3.5-inch drive shaft, aluminum drive shaft.
Yep. Let's talk about the wheels and tires, Ronnie, because I feel like your wheel and tire setup just absolutely is perfect for the ones.
Well, which setup? So I used to run the Jag setup. I ran the Jags for quite a while.
Was that the one at the shootout last year?
Yep.
Okay.
So I actually just swapped over to their Rotas. They're like a TE37 lookalike.
Okay.
But I still have the Jags. I just got a good deal on the Rotas, and I like the look of them and wanted to give them a shot. And they actually are a tiny bit lighter than the Jags. So, yeah, that's what's on there now.
Okay.
But the Jags they're I get asked a lot about them, and when I got them, it was only $400 for all 4 wheels.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so they're a really, and they only weigh like 12, 13, 14 pounds, something like that. So they're really affordable, and they're a really light wheel. And like you said, they have a cool look to them also. So
yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, Ronnie, what do you do for tuning? What ECU you're running and doing? Who's behind the keyboard?
So just recently, I guess it's almost been 2 years now. So obviously I was on ECM Link just like everybody else. I did ECM Link for a long time. I ran a 9.1 on ECM Link, and Kevin Jewer was the one tuning all of that.
Okay.
I had another buddy that helped me out before that, Willie, and that was pretty much it for the ECM Link. But like I said, just recently I swapped to Fuel Tech, so I'm on a Fuel Tech 550. Kevin Collins. It's kind of funny because I went from Kevin Jewer over to Kevin Collins.
Only trust.
Yeah, something about Kevin's, man. I don't know. But yeah, I went over to Kevin Collins, and he set me up with a full custom wiring harness and the whole Fuel Tech setup and everything. And he literally, in a sense, copy and pasted from the ECM Link and just gave me a startup tune for the Fuel Tech.
Huh?
And he basically remote tuned it and got me back to where I was on ECM Link. It ran the same exact ET. It was basically doing the exact same thing. So that was really cool. And then just recently, Brandon Mao has kind of taken over, and he's been helping me out a whole bunch. So So I kind of been bouncing around.
Yeah. Get it where you can get it.
Yeah, and I want to learn. I've never really had a desire to tune. I'll build it. I'm fine with that. I'll drive it.
Right.
But the tuning, I never really had a desire. It just not something that like excited me. It just kind of, I guess it really scared me, because I didn't understand it.
Yeah, I relate to that.
Yeah. So the cool thing with Brandon is he kind of has been, like FaceTiming me and showing me what he's doing so I can get a grasp of what's going on and not be so intimidated by it.
Yeah. Okay.
And, eventually maybe be able to make some of these adjustments and stuff like that on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of really smart people that are helping me out, and I'm grateful for it.
Good deal. Well, Ronnie, I would imagine there's people out there listening who really want to get to where you are on the list, or at least run nines. So I want to talk about some of the biggest hurdles for you when it came from getting from the 11s to the 10s, and then from the 10s to the 9s.
It's kind of funny because where I live now, I don't have a quarter-mile track, so I always just ran eighth-mile stuff. And that's here in San Diego, California, and we moved to Missouri, which that was kind of the same thing. It was just an eighth-mile track, but if your car was on the slower end, they would allow you to run out a quarter mile.
Okay.
So, I didn't even know what it would run in the quarter mile until I moved out there, and my car was already kind of developed. I was running 670s, 680s in the eighth mile. So when I first ran my first quarter mile, it ran a 10.2. So I just kind of skipped over the 11s and almost skipped over the 10s. So it was kind of crazy because, like I said, I ran eighth mile stuff and I was already running those low numbers in the eighth mile. That's probably one of my favorite passes I've ever made, just because I was so surprised that it ran what it did. Because I was expecting to run, maybe a high 10. I was hoping to run a 10, and then it ran a 10.2. I'm like, holy crap.
Just needed the chance to kind of run it out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
So, to actually run a 9 was definitely not as easy. That when I ran that first 10.2, that I had no cage, no nothing, because like I said, I wasn't expecting to go that fast. So right then is when I got my cage and put my cage and everything in, but also I basically stripped the car. I took everything out from behind the dash, all the sound deadening. I started I cut out a lot of stuff from the inside. Basically just anywhere I could cut weight was what I did.
Right.
Pretty much just because I knew I wasn't going to make the power to run what I wanted to run at the time. So I was kind of looking for other ways to be able to do that, So yeah, cut out a whole lot of stuff, and then it took me a lot longer. It took me probably another year to run an actual 9, and yeah, I kind of skipped a lot of numbers there too. I went from that 10.2 and then ran a 9.70, and then it kind of just stayed there. I didn't really improve too much from there because, like I said, I didn't really run quarter mile, so I didn't really get the chance to do that.
You didn't have that thing like other people do, where it's like what is it, 10.00 or anything like that?
Well, that's funny you say that because that's where I'm at now. So I was chasing an 8. I wanted an 8 really bad, and
Of course.
yeah, and obviously I still want it. I know the car will do it. I just I run quarter mile one time a year is when I go to the shootout, and that's the only time I run quarter mile stuff.
Yeah.
So last year I was shooting for an 8, and I went 900 something, 9004 or something like that. So that was, I mean, it was cool because it was a new PB, but at the same time I was like, just come on, why can't you just run an 890?
Right.
A
little bit.
Yeah, and now I know the car is way more dialed than it was last year, so it's not really a question that it'll run an 8 now, as long as everything stays together.
Mm-hmm.
But where it's at now, it should run an 8, but should is different than actually doing it, you know?
Yeah. But like you said, that 9004, you're knocking on the door. I think you'll get there.
Yeah, and where it's at now at the 8th mile, it's running like 570s 8th mile.
Right.
As a to B setup, so.
Well, Ronnie, how was it getting that first 9-second slip?
The first 9 that felt good because I was actually chasing that one. I think I went through a motor before I ran that 970, so that was a pretty cool moment. It was completely different than running the 10 because, like I said, the 10 was just such a surprise.
Right.
And then that one it's almost like a relief, because you run that number that you've been chasing and working for, then it's a cool feeling.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Kirkpatrick Auto and Fleet Repair. Kirkpatrick Auto and Fleet Repair is a local, full-featured auto shop in Chilliwack, British Columbia, with years of experience and comprehensive ability. Instead of searching for a different provider every time your vehicle has a problem, their team of technicians is at the ready to deal with everything from electrical problems to diagnostic issues. They believe in providing the best possible customer service and transparent pricing for all the work they do. When you choose them, you'll know that you're in good hands and that when you drive your vehicle away from their shop, it will have an excellent repair or maintenance service. That's the Kirkpatrick Auto and Fleet Repair way. Find out more about their products and services at kirkpatrick.ca.
Good. Ronnie, what's your pre-race ritual like from the time you unload off the trailer to the time you get up there to the first staging light? What do you do in between?
So it's funny because I'm basically a one-man team. I load up my car, I load up, the truck, I get to the track, I do everything just by myself. Or if I have my wife helps me. But it almost feels like you're in a spaceship getting ready to go because you got so many switches and buttons and all this stuff you got to turn on and
right. Your pre-flight checks.
Yeah. One of my biggest things, and people are probably gonna think I'm crazy, but I change my oil almost every single time I go out and run the car hard. For me, it's like that $50 and an oil filter and oil is better than a $5,000 motor. So that's one thing that I always do. Another is being an auto. We don't have a trans brake, so we're leaving on a foot brake. So a big thing for me is getting my brakes warm. So I'll go just drive around the pits, just dragging my brakes, just to get some heat in my brakes. Yeah, that's really the biggest things.
Well, Ronnie, I was thinking back to the picture that you posted with you and Frank, both the parachutes open coming down to the end of the track. would you say that that's your most memorable pass that you've ever made in this car, or do you have another one in mind?
Recently, yeah, because Frank is a big SoCal DSM guy, you know. So, and he's been around for a long time. So,
Right.
he may not even know it, but for me to even just line up with him was a really cool moment. And then somehow I beat him. I don't know how the heck that happened, but I beat him, and then I pulled my chute because the lane that I was in, basically I have to wait for him to come around me so he can make the turn off first. So I make sure I pull my chute so I can get slowed down in time. And then he just so happened to pull his, and then I got the picture at the end of the day, and I was just like, holy crap. You know, I'd never even had a parachute picture. So then on top of that, being with somebody in the picture that I look up to was pretty cool.
It is a really cool picture.
Mm-hmm. And it came out perfect too.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Ronnie,
that was a big memorable one, but also the Hoonigan thing, that was pretty crazy.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, can't forget
Just
that.
just because of the, I guess the amount of money that car costs, and I don't know, just the whole experience was crazy.
Well, Ronnie, sometimes we see, somebody launch and it'll cut right towards a wall, or have a bad breakdown midway through the pass. Have you ever had a sketchy moment on the track that kind of made your heart drop?
Just recently, I had a small fire in my engine bay, and that was pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a small electrical fire. I had a wire ground out, and somehow it just caught the wiring on fire. And it was just kind of weird how everything worked out, because the lane that I was in, I usually don't pull my parachute because it's the outside lane.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually can slow down in time without pulling it, and I can get to the turnoff road. For some reason, this pass, I decided, oh man, I'm cooking. I'm gonna pull my parachute. So I pulled the parachute, and whenever I do pull the parachute, I pull over at the end of the track, and there's a safety guy, ambulance, he's just standing there, and he usually runs out and he'll roll my parachute up for me and throw it into my hatch, so I don't have to, unstrap and get out of the car. And
Right.
so I just so happened to pull over right in front of him, and he saw the fire right away. And I mean, he literally put it out within 10 seconds of me being stopped.
I'm definitely glad he was there.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy turn of events of how it all worked out like that. That's probably like my scariest moment. I've had other, moments where I, broke an axle, but I've never had anything where it, shot me at the wall.
Right.
I had a motor let go once on the big end. That was pretty scary because I knew it let go, and I knew I was oiled down, and just somehow I decided to not get on the brakes super hard, and I just coasted to the end of the track, and turns out literally the entire underside of my car, my tires, my wheels, everything were covered in oil.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I mean, I made the right decision there. But yeah, those are probably the two scariest moments for sure.
Ronnie, we both know that there's a whole culture behind DSMs. Would you say that the community has impacted your journey with this car?
Yeah, for sure. I used to be, really active in, all the DSM Facebook pages and forums and stuff. I've kind of fell out of that recently, but there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there, way more knowledgeable than I am. It's weird because I've I've somehow, I don't really know how, but got to like the level where people are asking me questions on how to do stuff. And I think it's weird because I'm still asking other people questions on how to do stuff, you know? So it just goes full circle, and it's just cool. It's cool to see, like, you know, I've had other cars, Lexuses, and I've never been in the Hondas, but I've been in other car groups, you know, I've been in truck groups, and it always seems there's always some sort of drama, crazy crap going on in all these other groups, and that's never, I don't ever really see that in the DSM stuff.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and it's everybody's usually always welcoming and down to help. So
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
yeah.
Well, Ronnie, if let's say that money wasn't an issue, you hit the California lottery. What's your dream build look like for this car?
That's probably the easiest question you're gonna get an answer to, and that's Rich Ong's car.
There you go.
Yep.
Same color,
thing-
same everything.
Yeah, his car is literally my absolute dream car.
Love it.
Besides my own car.
Yeah.
Because my vision for my car is literally what it has turned into. So, but if I could just open up my checkbook and just do whatever I wanted, it would be Rich Hong's car.
It's hard to get better than that, really.
Yeah, and this goes back to my 2GB Talon being one of my favorite cars. I think his name's Ryan. Ryan. He's got the purple 2G that he's building.
Oh, Ryan Sharp.
Yep. That would probably be a close number 2.
Yeah.
Because that thing, just from where it's at now, is looking crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely Rich Hong's car.
That thing's going to be a masterpiece when it's done.
Yeah. And they're taking their time and
doing everything right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Rich Hong's old car also. That thing was crazy too.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big 1GA fan, and his old car was 1GA. So yeah.
Ronnie, I know you talked earlier about shooting for the 8s. What else is there any more updates for this build as far as trying to make more power, different turbo, or additions to the cage or anything like that?
Actually, after this shootout I'm gonna be tearing the car apart and just doing all safety. So updating basically everything to run a 850. But I just want to start it over. So the cage possibly could be getting cut out. Just basically, I'm gonna go by the book and just do everything I need to do for safety.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's pretty much already there, but it was always more of an afterthought. You know what I mean? Versus like taking the book and just doing it step by step and getting everything done right. That's a big thing. Turbo, I actually just went down a size in turbo because I plan on running possibly either Street Eliminator or what's the other street class?
Street
32. Yeah. So I went down a size in turbo, so I'm class legal to run in Street 32 if I decide to go that route.
Nice. That's going to be a good class this year.
Yeah. It just, seeing it last year was it just looked fun. So that's really it for I'm at a good stage where I'm not braking every single time I take the car out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still fast enough to be competitive. It's just, and I, everybody says it, but I kind of want to just keep it where it's at. But I know that's not going to happen. But I'm going to try to keep it close to where it's at. I did some fueling updates. I just swapped to a mechanical fuel pump. Really, the only thing I see in the future is probably 8 injectors and a big drag intake manifold. Yeah.
Well, Ronnie, as many times as you've gone to the track, do you see a common mistake that new racers seem to be making a lot?
Um, I don't really see like if a new racer comes to a track, I don't see that if they make a mistake. To me, I don't see it as a mistake. I see it as they're just someone coming out trying to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess the biggest mistake would be to not be afraid to go out and make the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
When you go, like, get out to the track and just send your car down the track. And then when you make a mistake, I guarantee there's going to be somebody at the track that's going to be like, hey, man, you need to do it this way. Or you're doing this wrong. There's going to be someone there to help you. So I guess the biggest mistake is not going to the track because you're afraid you're going to look stupid or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's fair.
You just gotta get out there and do it. Start learning.
Yeah. Well, Ronnie, I know you talked about the shootout, but are there any other events that you plan to attend this year with the car?
Not really. Um, it's funny because I kind of just downgraded my entire like race setup.
Uh-huh.
I used to have a nice enclosed trailer. I went back to an open trailer. Um, so I kind of like just staying local and doing that, and then do the shootout once a year. But I would like to maybe travel out to Vegas and do like IFOs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, but really, I kind of just, like I said, stay local, support my local track, and the shootout. That's really it.
Yeah. Yeah, those IFOs are always a good time, though. If you ever get to make it out to one.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in a prime spot. I got Vegas, Arizona. There's quite a few different places I can go to. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, Ronnie, one thing I added in this year for the podcast is the question: is there anybody that you want to call out this season? Anybody that you want to get on top of on the list or race in real life?
not really. People always think it's weird, but like I'm into racing, and racing's a competitive sport, but
Right.
I don't know. I'm not really like that. Like I just like to race. It's not really like I don't want to categorize calling someone out, but it's not like an ego thing to me. It's not like, oh, I'm faster than you
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. It's just like I want to go out and race. It's fun to me. If I get to line up with somebody that's as fast as me or faster than me, and it turns out to be a badass race, that's what I'm out there racing for.
Even better, yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't want to race someone and they just whoop my ass and it's not even a race, or vice versa. I want to go out and race, and that guy wins by thousands.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm out there.
Gotcha.
So I don't really have anyone I want to call out. I just want to race. I want to have fun. I want to smile. I want to laugh.
Right.
Yep.
Get to talk to all the racers and stuff like that.
Yep. Exactly.
I get you. Okay.
Well, Ronnie, where can people find and follow you on social media so they can take a better look at this Eagle talent?
Instagram mainly. My Instagram is Ronnie_Grant. Facebook is just Ronnie Grant. TikTok a little bit. I try to stay posting on there, but I'm really bad at it. It's mainly Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
YouTube also. I'm trying to do the YouTube thing.
Gotcha.
It's just
I'll link it down below.
hard.
You can check it out.
Yep, that'd be awesome.
Is there anybody that you want to give a thanks or a shout out to who either helped get your car where it is or help you get where you are?
I mean, that's a hard question because there's a long list for that one. Obviously, the Kevins, Kevin Jewer, Kevin Collins, Brandon Mao, Darren Thomas Racing. When I went to them for my motor, that really changed my whole racing program. That was a big turning point. Robert over at FP, those guys are, well, everybody at FP really. Amber, they're all great, and they're super smart. Help you out with any questions you have with turbos. The Morrisons, amazing people also. That's it, really. My wife for putting up with me. Because, I mean, I'm sure you know it and some other people listening, but sometimes this stuff becomes all we know,
Right.
Get off work and go straight to our car, work on it 10, 11, 12, 3 o'clock in the morning. Also, you can make a race, and then you get to the race, and you get knocked out first round, Yep. So, yeah, definitely my wife.
Good. Well, Ronnie, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share your story, both of yourself and of your 1G Eagle Talon. And I can't wait to see it in action again here soon.
Yep, it's coming up here pretty quick.
Yes, it is. I'll see you then.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.